It's a big issue. I think particularly if you don't have a senior executive or CEO who is already supportive of it, it often takes changes in leadership. And sometimes I say to people who are quite analytically oriented in companies that aren't, it may be easier for you to go to another company that already is highly analytical. Step one is to say, okay, they can remain in their silos, but at least let's get them talking to each other a little bit by having an annual event or a biannual event or something along those lines where people can start to share their ideas and learn of each other's existence and maybe start to share approaches. Then you can start to put a little overlay on that in terms of, well, how could we support that with a portal or a newsletter or anything that could accelerate the transfer of ideas. The next step is probably just a small little group that serves as some sort of center of excellence, reporting up through some analytically focused function, ideally with an organization-wide mandate, maybe finance, maybe IT or whatever, that says, okay, how many people do we have in analytics? And they can facilitate those events that I was talking about and can start to say, well, can we go and talk with this senior manager about this business that doesn't seem to be doing analytics at all, even though there's real opportunity. I mean, all that is facilitated, of course, if you have the buy-in of senior executives about the importance of analytics and the need to really start to think of it more as an enterprise capability and not something that's in these little silos. I think one of the fastest growing areas is actually in human resource analytics, growing from a small base, obviously, but the idea of using analytics to identify who are the best people to hire, who's most likely to leave, what are the attributes of the most successful managers. These are some things that the leading companies in analytics, Google, for example, is doing quite successfully now, and you tend to see it more at the lower levels of companies with very large workforces. Retailers are doing it more and more, but I think ultimately the real payoff is going to be when we start to evaluate senior managers for their ability to lead in a data-based way. And so I think HR is one of the functions that's really going to be moving in that direction pretty dramatically. First step is to sort of look around and even make a good list of what data resources we have as an organization. For an insurance company, it might be claims data that we've never done anything with. It might be supplier data that we've never really rated our suppliers on how effective they are or how important are they to ensuring on-time delivery. In many cases, it's going to be customer data, of course. So how do we exploit it more in terms of using it to make offers, to segment the customers in the first place, to start to predict which customers are going to leave us? In almost every case, an organization can do more with their customer or supplier or their people data than they have in the past. It may require some efforts to integrate it with other sources, other internal sources, or to clean up the data somewhat, but they're almost, 99 times out of 100, they're going to be unexploited opportunities in internal data. There are times when either we can't get data because it's something we've never done before, or it's not worth the trouble to acquire a lot of data, where I think intuition and experience and unaided judgment can be useful. There's a lot of evidence suggesting that experience as a guide to decision making is really only very useful if you made that decision several times in the past and been able to learn from it. Maybe you can do a test. If you can't do a test, then precious little left, but experience and intuition. But even then, I would say it's important to try to get multiple people involved in the decision process. unaided intuition of one person is worse than unaided intuition of a smaller group. And that's worse than unaided intuition of a larger group. So the more people we can get involved in the process, the better, I think. So there's still a way to involve those other resources than data in decision making, but I would say you have to be careful with it. First, we're going to be digesting big data for a while because the kinds and amounts of data that are going to be put out by sensors and every device being connected to the internet, and our smartphones and so on being on and collecting and broadcasting data all the time, I think are going to be a tough issue to deal with. But I think where we have lagged and where we need to focus after that is to start to think about how exactly do we portray, represent, display data in ways that humans can really make more sense of it. So in many cases, we are already far beyond the human ability to digest and pay attention to all this data. So, much more effort at the sort of human-machine interface, I think, is going to be the next step, and involving neuroscience and various kind of graphical analytics approaches, I think will be some components of that approach.